Many people shave every day because they think this will encourage a beard or mustache to grow faster. But shaving hair doesn't affect its growth rate or thickness. A hair does get a hard tip after being shaved. The tip seems coarse till the time when it grows out again. During this time, you feel as if the hair is darker and thicker. Lightning can strike the same place 2 times. It can even happen during one thunderstorm. There's no scientific reason why a lightning bolt wouldn't do that, but the probability of this happening is too small. That's why people created that legend. Everest is the highest mountain in the world. Not really. The highest point in the world above sea level is indeed the peak of Mount Everest. It's more than 29,000 feet high. But if you take into account the distance from the foot to the top, Everest loses to volcano Mauna Kea. It's towering over the Hawaiian Islands. The mountain's top reaches a height of 13,800 feet above sea level, but its foot is under the water. From there to the peak, the distance is 32,800 feet, and this makes Mauna Kea the highest mountain on the planet. The North Star isn't the brightest object in the night sky. There are about 50 other blazing stars you can notice from Earth. For example, Sirius, also known as the Dog Star, looks much brighter compared to the North Star. Dogs don't release sweat to cool their body. Their coat would keep the sweat from evaporating. They regulate their body temperature through rapid breathing. A dog opens its mouth and sticks out its tongue to allow moisture to evaporate faster. And still, these animals do sweat. There are sweat glands on their paws, but the function of this sweat is not to thermoregulate, but to make the paws stickier. This way, they cling to the ground better. As for the moisture on the dog's nose, it doesn't only control body temperature. A wet nose captures the tiniest smell particles much better. It's not bad for your health to crunch your knuckles. There's no proof that it may lead to problems with your finger bones. The sound you hear in the process is made by a special organic fluid when it bursts into the gaps between the bones. When you crack your knuckles, you put pressure on your joints. Under this pressure, the liquid begins to bubble and makes crunching sounds, but it does no harm whatsoever. A coin dropped from a skyscraper's roof won't cause serious damage to anything. It can sting a little if it accidentally falls on your head, but it won't hurt. For one thing, pennies are lightweight. The coin's speed does grow with every passing second during the fall, but the air resistance increases too. But still, it's a bad idea to try it out. Better safe than sorry. You take the last slice of pizza and accidentally drop it on the floor. You might think you have 5 seconds before bacteria gets on it, but in fact, you don't have any time at all. Anything that contacts any surface immediately picks up some microbes, and you can't know what kind of bacteria and how many of them are on your floor right now. If you haven't cleaned the floor for weeks, there will be more bad bacteria on it, and the 5-second rule will never save your pizza. People do not eat 8 spiders a year while sleeping. They don't eat them at all. Spiders avoid people. They create webs and hunt in places that are as far away from humans as possible. Powerful vibrations signal danger to little spiders, and people create such vibrations all the time, while breathing, moving, and speaking. Our hearts are beating, and thus vibrating too. Spiders will never visit an area with so many risks intentionally. Also, a warm stream of air coming out of your mouth and nose is bound to scare a little spider away. Bats do hunt their prey using echolocation, but they're not blind. They see the world in black and white because they don't have enough color receptors. And still, at night, they see better than people. But during the day, bats see almost nothing. That's where the myth about these animals being blind comes from. There's no scientific proof that moonlight affects people's behavior. The moon has enough gravitational force to influence seas and oceans, but it's not enough to change the way the human brain works. The myth of how the moon affects people is passed down from generation to generation. For some people, it works like a placebo, or rather, self-persuasion. A person believes the moon can have a really strong effect on their mind, and this really happens. You use a mere 5 to 10% of your brain. If you used 100%, You could use telekinesis, read other people's minds, have a perfect memory, and process information lightning fast. This is what both sci-fi movies and one very common myth will have you believe. It has nothing to do with reality, though. Brain scans have shown that the brain works at full capacity, even when it performs routine tasks. If the brain worked at only 10 to 20%, you would hardly be able to analyze information, use abstract thinking, and communicate with other people. A meteor flies through the sky like a bright flash and lands in a field. When you see it, the space object is still red hot and steaming. This is a myth. When meteorites hit the ground, they're cold. Sometimes they're even covered with frost. When a meteorite first enters the atmosphere, it heats up because of the air resistance. Then, it flies through the lower layers of the atmosphere. There, the temperatures are 10 times lower than on the ground. That's why the meteorite cools down and is again frozen when it lands in a field. Chewing gum won't stay inside your stomach for 7 years if you accidentally swallow it. But sweeteners and flavorings in the gum can indeed cause an upset stomach. In any case, try not to swallow gum because it won't do your body any good. Ostriches never hide their heads in the sand out of fear. This tactic wouldn't help them to protect themselves from other animals anyway. This myth appeared because people usually see an ostrich bending its head down toward the ground from a distance. That's why it seems that the head is hidden in the sand. In reality, these birds make small holes and use them as nests for their eggs. Several times a day, a bird may stick its head into this small burrow to turn the eggs over. This helps with better heat distribution. Also, when ostriches feel they're in danger, they either run away or fight. It's a myth that goldfish forget everything that happens to them after a few minutes. They have a good memory. Simple experiments that involved feeding these fish proved it. Goldfish can not only store information for several months, but also recall it after some time has passed. Not bad for a creature with a tiny brain, which is almost 400,000 times smaller than a human's. The Sahara isn't the biggest desert in the world. It takes second place. Its area is almost half the area of cold Antarctica. Dunes and heat are not the main features of a desert. It's defined by the amount of precipitation. And in Antarctica, it's just as scarce as in the Sahara. Most of this area is blanketed in wind-carved ice fields and rocky mountains covered with glaciers. It hardly ever rains there. The sugar that natural products contain is the same as the sugar in candies. Honey, fruit, and a granola bar affect your body in a similar way as high sucrose foods. The only difference is that there's more sugar in sweets.